Hello. Happy Friday, everybody. Oh, wow. Already a sick amount of comments. That's cool. Dave. Oh, did I get it wrong? Oh, man, bummer. You can touch your own shadow. Oh, well, technically you said feel. You can't feel your shadow. You can touch it, I guess, technically. Wouldn't you technically be blocking it out if you... I don't know. That's cool, though. I do love a good riddle, and I respect that. I'll have to give it some thought. Brandon, yo, what's up, dude? Kai, Dylan, Dave again, Widdly solo time. Was that not enough Widdly? Do you want some more Widdly? Can't turn down solo time. Widdly solo time. Sup, dude? Hey, Kenny, what's up? Solo Jake AMA. Yeah, it'll be something like that. And Ken has noticed, along with the eagle-eyed viewers among you, I'm sure, that the other guy's not here. That other guy is Mr. Joe Balaguer, the man, the myth, and the legend. He is actually out under the weather, and you'll probably notice that I sound a little funny as well. I don't feel bad. I feel fine, but my nose is a little runny, and I hope he didn't get me sick. Shout out superior immune system? I don't know. We'll see where we get with all of that. But either way, it's a happy Friday. Good to see you guys. Greeting. Oh, wait, that's probably trademarked. Greetings, Haziel. Good to see you, dude. Haziel has a sick build that's floating around right now, which is very cool. Fun thing about doing this solo is I get to do that to myself now. For those of you who don't know, if we don't play random notes, our powered wedge that we use for monitoring will turn off on us. It goes into like standby mode. So at least now I know when I'm going to do it over myself. Yeah, the other guy, Dave. So for those of you who don't know, today is Friday, and every other Friday we do the Friday live stream here at Balaguer headquarters in lovely Pottstown, Pennsylvania. It actually is kind of lovely today. I don't know why I'm looking at my watch, but it's like almost 50 degrees outside, so that's pretty sick. We got a whole bunch of snow last week, as I'm sure many of you know, but it's almost entirely melted at this point, which is kind of cool. So, you know, maybe, knock on wood, maybe spring is on its way. Pretty sick, though. Currently at the hotel in Birmingham for the guitar show tomorrow, watching in 240p on hotel Wi-Fi. Sick. Yeah, we're super bummed that we couldn't be there. Funny story, I've probably gotten, we may have talked about this, I can't remember. I've probably gotten a dozen different emails, at least, in the last 2 weeks of people being like, hey, see, you're going to be at the show. And I'm like, we're definitely not going to be at the show. What's up with that? Turns out we had been somehow ended up on the roster for this year, even though we are not there, clearly, which is a bummer. We hope to be there again next year. Without giving too much away, I'm hoping that things in the UK develop well this year. And if they continue on the track that they're on, we will definitely be at the Birmingham show next year, and hopefully in the UK sooner than that. But that's a conversation for another time. Super warm today. I'm currently waiting to pick up my daughter. Yeah, it's and I'm sure in the car it's especially nice because it's actually sunny, so you've probably got some legit like greenhouse stuff going on, which is pretty cool. Not in the greenhouse gas way, but like you're trapping the heat in the car. Probably nice and warm. Mario says, "Hey Jake and chat, GDSY guys, Joe with the UPS guy. Yeah, Mario bringing in the deep lore here. Yeah, we've seemingly for many moons it was impossible for us to have a live stream without the freaking delivery guy interrupting the stream, which was always hilarious because usually we were kind of when Joe and I were doing it, it was a bit of a solo gig. So like if the door was right there, the other guys couldn't hear the door, so like we would have to get up and go get it, or it was a thing for a while. Thankfully now, that's not too bad. Oh damn, is it bad out there, Dave? That sucks. I hope the weather gets better. We've been lucky, like I said, we've actually been pretty lucky after that snow. It was cold for a couple days, but it's been starting to warm up and it's supposed to get warm. I think we might get a little more snow next week, but it's like it probably won't stick. Again, knocking on the table to be sure. But Brandon says, "What's the tone for today?" Tone for today, great question, is the Quad Cortex and this beautiful guitar, which we talked about at NAMM, we talked about at Seymour Duncan, we talked about a bit in the last live stream, but we're going to talk about it again today because I can't put this freaking thing down, and I wanted to play it, and I was playing it earlier just to kind of warm up a bit, and I ended up breaking a string, and I had to kind of at the last minute just swap a string in. So if I end up a little bit out of tune, I apologize. I gave it the full treatment, but we'll see. I am playing, yes, Kenny, you're absolutely correct. Because I am by myself and I can do whatever I want today, don't tell my boss, I am running the JP2C, my personal preset on the Quad Cortex, which has 4 different captures of what was my personal JP2C. And I am playing this beautiful Seraph, which like I said, we'll talk more about in a minute. I'll run through the tones real quick for funsies. They are all JP2C tones. It is essentially channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, rhythm, channel 3, solo. That's kind of the vibe. And then I've got like delays and modulations and stuff switching around. The clean sound has compression and chorus on it, and delay. All the other like rhythm sounds have a really low delay on them because I like a little bit of cushion, and the lead just has a little more delay. And then I've got like backup scenes for modulated stuff. I'll run through it. Why not? Because it sounds sick, if I may be so bold. I'll have to go back and learn that solo again one day. I don't know why I'm in like a huge Dream Theater mood, so I'm just kind of like copying as many lame ass ripoffs of John Petrucci as I possibly can. But yes, the JP2C is, in my opinion, on the back of the Mark amps from Mesa, the greatest rock metal amp ever made. I love it. Close second for rhythm tones would probably be a Driftwood. Darkest Nightmare, super sick. And then other stuff. Yeah, that's a good. If you have funny other questions like that, drop them. I guess this is supposed to be kind of an AMA style thing. So that's the idea today, right? Joe could not make it. Like I said, he's under the weather. So wish him well wishes, please. And hopefully, hopefully I am not going to end up in the same boat. And yeah, just figured we'd talk a bit. We haven't done a stream in a minute where it was kind of just like ask us whatever you want and we answer the questions. Um, Plus, I think the mood just felt right today to answer a lot of the questions that maybe you are afraid to ask. Not to rip on Colin over at Science of Loud, but if you have questions that you're afraid to ask them. Curious to know. We always get great questions during the live stream. Curious to know what's on everybody's mind, especially after we announced a bunch of new stuff for this year. But it could also be about totally random stuff. It could be about me or the company or what we're into or music or whatever. But don't be afraid. I don't want to encourage controversy, but don't be afraid to be. It's not a big deal. Our weather alternates between raining and overcast. Yeah, I've made the trip once. I hope to make it again soon. I know we were talking about that. Yeah, it's funny. I enjoyed my time in England so much, and we got the royal treatment, which was like we got sun for a day, rain for a day, mist for a day, rain for another day, back to sun. So I at least experienced the full gamut of a week's worth of English weather. So um, sounds huge. Thanks, dude. Um, it's definitely my go-to sound. I have it set up in the quad where I have two. It's a common routing where I have two out signals. One is like a 1/4 inch, like an instrument out, line out, and the other's a mic out. So I run one to front of house and one to a cab, which is not in the room. In the room, I'm just running through the monitor, which is just that XLR out. But typically, I'm running this with one signal going to my either Marshall or Mesa cab. Typically, the Mesa if it's on the ground. Spoiler alert: early controversial opinion. Cabs sound better when they're on the ground. That means not even on casters. I mean, like on the ground, physically touching the ground. They sound better that way. Do it. Try it. If you can prove me wrong, I'll literally buy you dinner because you won't, because it's not true. But I promise you, put your cab on the ground, it'll sound better. Same thing with combos, even. Take the casters off. It sounds better. I'm not saying it's worth the trade inconvenience depending on what you're doing, but it will sound better. Let's see. You should run mine. Kenny does have a sick preset, 5153, boosted, I believe. And yeah, sounds killer. Kai says, I've got a video with some Mark series fractal amp modeling coming up next week. Been diving into them recently. Yeah, dude, I saw I saw the long form video where you had that one Mark section, and then I saw you clip it, and it's something that it's close to my heart. I've owned some vintage Mark amps, and I've spent a lot of time with all of them except for the OG, because there aren't a lot of Mark 1s around. I haven't spent a lot of time with the Mark 1, and I haven't spent a lot of time with the Mark 7. Everything else I've spent a bunch of time with, and they all sound great. I think the Mark II C Plus sounds the best. But as far as like modern features go, I think the JP2C is unbeatable. Having 2 EQs and 3 channels that all sound sick and are independent, and it's just really, I suppose if I'm being super picky, I wouldn't mind having like a solo boost on that amp, because if it had a solo boost, it could literally do everything without needing anything other than like a compressor, a chorus pedal, and a wah and a delay, I guess, which would be sick. But yeah, it rips. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm not that I'm like the ultimate expert or anything, but just having played them all, they all have kind of their own little weird tricks. And it's all, I mean, I'm sure you'll figure it out. The research is all out there, but it is definitely like, I thought Mark amps sounded like trash for a long time because I just didn't know how to set them up. And being from Louisiana, I appreciate anything that's got a little bit of voodoo to it, and the Mark series certainly does. Once you get it, it's like then you know what you're looking for, and it's pretty straightforward after that. But there is a time when it's definitely a bit mystifying, and if I'm honest, a bit of a pain in the ass. But once you get it, it's like it's just they're god tier tones, in my opinion. Kenny says, was there an airplane flying over my house? Oh, wait, it was just Jake shredding. I appreciate that, yo. Kenny coming in with the premium gas. Phasor. Yeah, I'm more of a flange guy. Truthfully, my modulations of choice are typically chorus and flanger. I use chorus on clean sounds, flanger on gain sounds. I like the crispy clarity, like harmonic content of a flanger, and with distortion, it sounds amazing. Chorus I like because it makes something sound bigger, so you can have a clean sound or a lead sound, especially if you're into like the STP, like bigger rhythmic stuff. But for my clean sound, I like the choruses. And for what it's worth, I run the chorus in front of the amp, not in the loop, and I run the flanger in the loop. Um, that's just a million years of experimenting and goofing off, and that's how I've always liked it. And I've tried it in all of its different configurations, both with amps and in the quad and other modelers, and that just seems to be what always worked for me. Um, I have a couple of other goofball things. Like I run a reverb occasionally. I don't really like reverb with like rock sounds most of the time, but whatever. And then I've got like some octaves and fuzzes and stuff that I'll use for big sounds, which sound like this, just for funsies. It's a super specific sound. It's actually the Thunderclaw with the Pog with the whammy, and they all operate together. So it's like this insano sound. I'm so used to playing it in drop tuning that I was playing it as if I was playing in drop C for a second there. So sorry for everyone's ears who heard that whole thing be like this weird uh, second crunchy chord thing. But yeah, no, super sick. I love all that stuff. Definitely a gear nerd. I don't get tired of that. Kenny says no comment. Nice. Is that an Anderton's exclusive white QC in the background? Dave says it is. That's Joe's QC, his Stormtrooper QC. Joe has owned. Oh, he's gonna kill me for this. That's a good. There's a there's a controversial AMA question. How many quad cortexes has Joe owned? If you can guess the number, I'll give you a virtual high five. Let's see. What are some highly requested builder features that you can't add? Ooh, wow, that's a great question. That we can't add. So a lot of people want to do, like for instance, headstock binding on inline headstocks. That's one of the most popular requests we get. And the thing is, because the headstock has two separate thicknesses, if you do the two-tiered headstock, the bottom, which could also be the top if you're reverse headstock, but what's typically natural or black, that portion of the headstock is thinner than the other portion of the headstock. That's what gives it that step down look. And it is very difficult to get that to look right if you imagine binding something like that where you have to taper the binding as you go. It's not impossible. You would just essentially you need two pieces of binding for the thick portion and then only one for the thin portion, but it's not exactly 2 in 1, so you'd have to like physically shave the binding down. It's quite a task. We've experimented with it. Maybe one day, excuse me, maybe one day, but not yet. That's a good one. And that's a good example of one of those specs. If I think of anything else, custom inlays. That's a big one that people ask about a lot, especially because we do them for artists. And so it's like, and to be clear, not even all artists. It's like a special thing. But we can do custom inlays. The issue is it's just super time consuming to get it right. And most people, while they say they're okay with it taking longer, end up in a place where they're kind of not, especially if it's something we might have to redo more than once, because if they're not happy with the level of detail, or if there's something that like didn't show up in the drawing file and then doesn't translate well to the fingerboard, it's like, okay, so we wasted a fingerboard and we wasted a bunch of time. And it's not that we can't do it, it's something we don't really like to do most of the time because it is challenging from an efficiency perspective. Let me put it that way. I hope that one day we can do, when we do like, whether it's USA full custom open books, which I hope we can do one day, that sort of thing, I'm sure options like that will be on the table. But for now, we keep it to the standard inlay stuff. That's two good examples. Also riddles. Let's see. We can call this fireside chat with Jake from State. I mean Balaguer. Yes, exactly. That's me, Jake from State Balaguer. Also riddles. Yes, I do love riddles. I always have actually since I was a kid. I've been super into like I like that stuff. You know, people will. I'm sure someone will poke fun at me either in the chat or later when they find out. But I've always been super into like magic. You know, card magic, stage magic. I always love that stuff. I love riddles. I love just all of that like quirky kind of stuff that has a mystique around it. And I think it's probably part of the reason why I fell in love with music at such a young age. Is like all of these bands had all of these stories and this mystique around them, and like oh you're doing this thing that like you're creating music like art, and I don't know, from a young age I latched onto a lot of that stuff, so pretty cool. Haziel says don't even have my build yet, and I can't wait to ask the most annoying things for the next one. Hit us up, dude. You know we got you covered, and you will have your build very soon, by the way. Excuse me. Yo, Brian, I am late to the party. Just Jake today. Yes, it is indeed just me today. Joe is under the weather. Colt 442 SD. Hey Jake, when will the new ambient espadas be available and how much will they cost? They will be available. And hey, dude, good to hear from you. They will be available. They will be complete May-ish. ETA is May. That is completion. They then still have to get here. So I expect they'll be done in May. It'll be an ocean freight thing. So they probably won't start like shipping until at least, let's say with QC time, like 4 to 6 weeks after that. So I would expect late June, early July for them to like actually show up on people's doorsteps. But they'll be complete in May. Price will be $14.99. So same price that we've been rolling with since the last batch. We didn't want to raise the price on them because we like them being right at about $1,500, and you know it's a ton of guitar for the money. So pretty sick. We're also doing, if you haven't seen, check out our Instagram, our announcement post for the standard series stuff. We're doing 3 trims. We're going to do, or 2 trims, 3 variations. So we're going to do the standard scale Espada Ambient, which everyone knows and loves, I'm happy to say. And we're going to do it in 2 colors, metallic Lake Placid Blue and metallic Rose Gold. Lake Placid Blue was in the original color scheme that we did, and it was the most popular color from that run. And it kind of a cool throwback. And then metallic Rose Gold is a finish that everyone's asked us to do. So we have kind of like this cool throwback color, and then the new color that everyone's asking for. And then the baritone, which is going to be a 27-inch Espada Ambient, similar to the ones that we did in the limited run with Little Box last year. If you don't know Little Box, check them out. It's a really great shop run by our buddy Andrew. They do all sorts of cool effects and guitars. And Ambient Trash is his tag. And the Ambient Endeavors. Had a moment there. My bad, Andrew. Forgive me. But it'll be a 27-inch. Oh, good. We still have sound. I thought the thing had gone on standby. So it'll be a 27-inch, and that one will be in Silverburst. So 3 guesses who came up with Silverburst for that guitar. Answer is Joe Balaguer. Good question though. Port City sounds so good on the casters, and you bought me dinner, so I win. That's fair, I guess. I actually use the Plenty lead amp boosted now, but the 5153 blue channel is sick. Oh, that's right. I forgot you switched to using all the Plenty stuff. Yeah, it sounds insane for sure. I'll catch you guys. I can't wait to hear it. Kenny's in a band called The Man in the Machine, super sick band out of Philly, and I'll be checking them out in March. They have a sick gig coming up at Trouble's End Brewing in Collegeville, which is like one of my favorite local breweries. Shout out Trouble's End. The brews are insane. They do super cool stuff like cask ales and stuff like that. And they have killer live music. The vibe of the place is great. The food's killer. Check it out. Shameless plug for them. Not a sponsor. Yo, damn, I'm late to the show. You are not, dog. I'm just glad you're here. Please, phaser all the way. Can't beat a pedal with a single knob for all of us dummies. True story, man. The one of the most underrated pedals I've ever used was the single knob flanger, the small MXR, basically their flanger equivalent of that phaser, of the Phase 90. And it did a killer rotary sound when you cranked it all the way, and it just sounded great, like no matter how you set it. I could spin. truthfully, while I love my boutique stuff, I really do. I could spend like $100 on pedals and build a board that I'd be happy with because I think a lot of that stuff sounds a lot better than people give it credit for. Plus, back in the day, you didn't have a choice and people still made it sound awesome. So, no excuses. Good shout, though. I like a lot of reverb and delay. It hides or amplifies my playing. Yeah, that's true. It can do that. Ken says 6. Dave says 5. Joe says 3. There he is. Got him. If you don't count the mini, I can't say that anymore. If you don't count the nano, yeah, I guess it is 3, isn't it? Mr. Joe Balaguer dropping in. Glad he could spare some time for us. Hope you're feeling all right, dude. Thanks for dropping in. Any plans to expand the multi-scale options, Dave asks. It is a common request to do 28.5 or 30-inch on the low end of a multi-scale. So it would be like a 28.5 to 27 kind of thing, or 30 to 28.5. We talked about it. It's definitely on the table. I think it's something that, a lot of people ask for it in the same way that a lot of people ask for 30-inch guitars. And we actually do get quite a lot of 30-inch scale orders, Select Customs. But the multi-scale thing is already kind of niche. Like it's not a super popular option. We do make a lot of multi-scales. We have more than one in the other room right now. But I don't know. Let me know. That's something that we're tracking. So I think if it got to the point where it was going to work and it felt right, we would do it. But it is not an easy thing to do. 30-inch guitars are already difficult, not least of all because of the materials and everything. It's also just because they often come with a level of understanding, right? Like if you build a 30-inch scale guitar, as a player, you have to understand that you're putting yourself in a very specific place with a 30-inch guitar. I think a lot of players just kind of like grab them and they're like, oh, wow, this sucks. And it can if you don't like kind of have the right expectation and mindset. But it doesn't take much to learn it. And once you get it there, whether that's for like insane metal or as like a bass 6, it works and it's killer. I highly recommend them. They're a blast. Jake, oh, John, yo, what's up, dude? Thanks for dropping in. I know, by the way, you emailed in. I owe you an email. I promise I have not forgotten. It's been a little crazy lately, but I did see your email. We will talk soon. But thanks for dropping in, man. Good to hear from you. Mario says metallic jade green on the builder when? Something like it sooner than you think. Tyler, how long to build a single guitar? Not an order. If Joe walked up and said, drop everything and we are only focused on this one guitar from start to finish, how long would that take? That's a cool question. It's a difficult thing to judge because so many things change the time that it takes to build a guitar. But if you're looking at something more typical, let's say a bolt-on 25.5-inch. I mean, let's say you were going to build something like this, right? It's got a carved top, but it's a single piece. It's not a solid top. Bolt-on, roasted maple neck and board, alder body, Seymour Duncan pickups, hip shot bridge. So parts that you can get, parts that you can get, woods that you can get, stuff that we keep that is not usually difficult to get, although there are always exceptions. If you're doing nothing else and all you're doing is building a guitar, again, it depends. One guy versus like the whole team. My guess would be if you did nothing else, you could probably have almost everything ready for finish in, let's say, a week or two, depending on what you're doing and how intense it is. And if you have all the parts, there's no lead time on waiting for parts. You've got another couple weeks of finish work because it just takes a long time to spray, cure, sand, spray, cure, sand, spray, cure, sand. It takes a while if you do it right. If you do thin coats, you take your time. It takes a minute. So that's another couple of weeks typically. Part of that process, you have fill up front, you have paint in the middle, like all of that stuff affects that time. Assembly is pretty quick once everything's ready, but between finish and final assembly is all of the fine tuning of everything. When you talk about fretting a neck or fretting a fingerboard, the putting the frets in is the easy part. It's the rest of it that takes time, the full level crown and polish. Um, I'm trying to make sure I'm not forgetting anything because it's been a minute since I've actually calced it out, although I have. Um, I'm going to say conservatively, depending on your spec, if it's one person and they're not doing anything else, and they're really taking their time to get it right, and working a reasonable amount of time in a day, 4 to 8 weeks. And that's like, I'll say 4 to 6 weeks. I'll tell you what, I'll bend it in a little bit for you. 4 to 6 weeks. If you have the team, less than a month. But again, there are certain things you can't divide and conquer, right? You build a body, you can build a body and a neck separately if you have two stations, whether that's CNCs or carving, woodworking stations. But, and you can also finish them separately, but you can also work paint on one, clear coat on the other. Fingerboard has to be done separately. If you're hand cutting the nut and not using a standard nut, which we do for some builds, meaning for some builds we do custom nuts, but for most of them it's a default, like a Graphtec nut, because they're so good that it's like, it just makes sense. They're super reliable, and if you ever break one, you can just replace it. It's not like you have to make a custom nut for your guitar. That would be my rough guess. If you're relatively skilled, you know what you're doing, and you're taking your time, I'm going to say 3 or 4 weeks for a typical guitar. Longer than that if you're doing things like multi-piece bodies, multi-piece necks, because then you're gluing, setting, like there's all additional wait time for all of that stuff. Fair question though. And for the record, that's my estimate. If you ask someone who's extremely, like that's all they do, I'm sure they could do it faster. And there are people who would certainly take longer. So, it's tough to pin something like that down, but that would be my guess. Cool question though. John says, carve top, neck through. Will that ever be an option? So technically we can do it. There are reasons that we don't do it usually, and it's usually due to some inconsistency. The process of doing something like that, because you can choose different neck woods, different body woods, different top woods, you're working with different densities, different materials, and it's hard to not only do it efficiently, but and I'm not, as part of an AMA, I guess I'm just being real about it. Like as a select custom, if something's going to take 2 months longer because of the way it sits into the queue and the spec you choose, like we consider those things. We don't want people to have to wait longer than they have to, even when they say they're okay with it. And that's one of those options that adds quite a bit of time if you do a solid top with a neck through, because you essentially have to build the guitar with the neck through, then plane the guitar, then put the top on, then work the top to the guitar. Like it makes the process much longer, much more room for error, and little things that can kind of just slip, which, the guys are more than skilled. It's not a skill issue. It's just really hard to keep it on lock. But I do think one day, yes, I think one day it will be an option. And I hope sooner rather than later. And we'll talk about it, because maybe sooner for you is sooner than you think. Tazi, really need that J Green metallic green on something. Hell yeah. Also, I think I owe you an email as well. But you will hear from me. Colt says, greetings, Ronan from Switzerland, by the way. Oh, excellent. That is what I like to hear. My main man. So good to hear from you, dude. Ronan has a build in that is like beyond sick. So stoked for that. Kai says, what's your favorite off-menu spec you've seen? If I'm honest, my favorite, which I always am, I'm trying not to say that as much. My personal favorite off-the-menu item is a flat top body, so you can get the binding, but with the drop top added. So that's not something we show on the builder, although I hope we do at some point. It's one of those time-consuming things, an efficiency thing, if you will. But it's, with a regular carved or contoured body, we don't typically do. You can't do binding on like a perfectly round body. I mean, you can, but honestly, my opinion, uh, not the opinion of Balaguer Guitars LLC. Uh, it often doesn't look quite right, which is why you have to do a flat top to get the body binding, or have some sort of edge. The doing the drop top keeps the edge, so you can work the binding around the edge. You're not losing the edge for the binding. You're just adding that drop top feature. That's probably my number one off the menu thing. I've done it on a couple of my personal guitars. I have one in the queue right now that has that option on it. It's probably my go-to. So that would be my answer. I think if more people knew about that, more people would order it. So you're hearing it here. That is an option. You can ask for that. Such a sick guitar. Oh, thanks, dude. Mr. Spaziano. I appreciate it. Yeah, I should probably talk about this guitar, huh? And the reason I'm playing it is not just because it rips, but because we have a whole bunch of in-stock guitars that we added to the website recently. So if you're in the market for a Balaguer and you don't want to wait for a build, there are a whole bunch of builds on the website, including a bunch of custom stuff, whether it's heritage builds or refins or just plain stock guitars that we have around. I know we have a USA Seraph in there and a couple of other things. So check it out. Go to the website, balaguerguitars.com. Go to how to buy, in-stock guitars. They're all listed right there. If you have any questions about in-stock or anything else, you can always email us at info@balaguerguitars.com. I would also recommend joining the Balaguer Facebook discussion group, the BGFBDG, because it is an awesome place to hang and chat Balaguer stuff. I struggle to call it forum-like because it is not negative. It's a great place to be, super positive vibes and great people. 99,000 times out of 99,001. So join. Also follow us on Instagram. Also Venmo me $5. I don't know. Don't do that. But yeah, check out our social stuff. We have a newsletter as well. You can go to the website. There's a newsletter section. You can drop in your email. The Facebook discussion group, the newsletter, on Instagram. Those are the places where you'll find our stuff announced the most. That's where we announce everything. So if you want something, you don't want to feel like you missed out, I would recommend doing some of those things in some capacity. Plus, we post sick guitar pics all the time, so ain't nothing to be mad about. Honeycomb inlays on Hannah's bass. Absolutely sick. Could custom inlays be a thing, or is that a one-off thing? I just sort of hit on this one, but custom inlays can be a thing. I hope to make them more of a thing in the future. We hope to make them more of a thing in the future. For now, it's only by request, and even then, it's very limited. Hannah and her husband, John, are in Blank Slate. They're both Balaguer artists. They've also both been super supportive of the brand for a very long time. They have a sick collection of select customs that they use all the time. And yeah, so it felt right. You can also check out John's guitars. He has some custom inlay stuff too. Pretty sick. But yeah, the honeycomb inlay. So Hannah has I don't want to call it a side project because that doesn't sound very kind, but she's also an artist beyond just music. And the honeycomb thing and bees in general is sort of a vibe. And the geometry worked out. It came out so sick. I'm a big fan of the Fusion model bass. I think it's underrated. It's probably I'm going to say it's my favorite of our bass models. And it's 5-string rose gold. It's like vintage modern. The inlay's sick. Like it's so on point for what I would be happy for every Balaguer bass to be. That it just absolutely rips. And John's collection ain't exactly hurting either. He has some builds that have stood the test of time in a way that not a lot have for other players, where he's just a monster when it comes to his spec. He's also a sick player, incredible singer. Check out Blank Slate. I'm not going to keep gassing them up because they don't need my help, but check them out. They're in Austin. Just put in a 30-inch 8. Yeah, you did. With a whammy. Hell yeah. Doesn't get more specific of a space than that. That's true. That's also super sick. So I'm stoked for that. I did see it come through, actually. So yeah, it's rad. Brian, 30-inch can get fatiguing. I'm very comfortable at the 27 scale for most tunings. Yeah, my 7-string, which is over there, is you can see it right there, the white one. You can just barely see it. Is a 27-inch. For me personally, I haven't yet found a reason to go any longer than that scale wise, because it's just I don't have very big hands, so that kind of works for me. 27 inches is kind of my max. But it definitely can get fatiguing. I have unusually long fingers and big hands, John says, so the 30-inch is actually more comfortable for my hands. There you go. That's it's true. I mean, that's something we hear. It's like my playing finally unlocked. Solos are easier to play. I love it. Finding a company that can accommodate that scale on a wide platform, support 100%. Thank you, dude. That's very kind of you. And it is, it's funny for me. I played a 26.5 inch for so long that I got so used to it that when I went back to playing 25.5, primarily on my Ether, which you can't see in shop, but if you've seen the stream before, you've seen it, the Gold Burst one. It I almost felt cramped, and I don't even have big hands, so I can imagine if you were, used to playing smaller guitars, you had giant hands. I'd imagine how cramped you would feel. So having a longer scale makes you feel more comfortable. I totally get that. Kai says beveling the fret edges on a fresh refret is one of the most annoying jobs I've done. So this is a running joke in the shop a little bit, is that like most techs and or luthiers, there's work that they like and work that they don't like as much. And it tends to fall into camps, right? Where, like, for instance, people who like fretwork might not like electronic work, or people who like to do carving and sanding might not like making custom nuts. There's like these weird little camps that people fall into, and fretwork is definitely one of them. Some people just do not like to do fretwork, and it is challenging and frustrating, and it takes a lot of patience and a lot of time to get good at, because it's basically, I mean, everything about making a guitar is an art form, but fretwork is an especially artistic process where if you really have to have a feel for it. You can measure, you can look, all of that stuff, and it is helpful. You build the experience there, but the feel thing, when it comes to fretwork, past like the leveling and crowning point, is very important, and it's something that we, apply to all of our guitars. So I hope that everyone thinks the fretwork is solid. I know I do. That's a good one though. Is it possible to request a veneer on the back of a guitar? Oh, that's a good question. It is possible to request it, yes. You would have to do a flat back, which the only option currently, so we do, if you want no body contours on a Balaguer, you can request no contours and we will do no contours. For instance, the Espada Ambient, because it's bound on the front and back of the body, double bound, it doesn't have the contours on the back. It's a flat back. So if you wanted to do a flat back with a veneer, yes, you could do that. We have done that before, but it's been very rare. I could probably count it on one hand. I have to go back and look though, but you can do it. As a side note, I was finally able to snag a Tartarus DS8. Oh, sick! Exact same one I sold years ago. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, man, those guitars are absolute monsters. Both Devin's Typhons and Tartaruses from back in the day. Personally, I'm partial to the Tartarus that he did. The 7 in Gray Burst is like, that's kind of the one that I would, if I found one for the right price, I'd probably have to get it. But the 8 was an absolute beast. And they're super sick guitars. Kai says, I don't think it's fair to put up the Heritage Espada up for sale this soon after ordering my custom. Also, the baritone ether looks sick. Yeah, speaking of in-stock guitars, the Heritage Espada, which is the metallic jade green guitar that everyone's been referencing, and the one that Kai's talking about here, is available in the in-stock section of the website. And don't worry, dude, if it's still around or if it goes somewhere, I'll let you know where it ends up. Maybe we'll hook you up with their some sort of, that's probably a privacy violation. Never mind, we won't do that. But if they're cool with it, we'll ask them. If they're cool with it, we'll hook you up so you don't get left behind if you ever find yourself in the right position. Also, the baritone ether. Yeah, the baritone ether is sick. It's a really cool pickup configuration too. HS, but the humbucker's a P90. It's mean sounding, really sick guitar. And I'm also a sucker for an ether. Sorry. Ooh, excuse me. Dave says, I noticed the Raspberry 7 sold pretty quickly. It did. Yeah, that was pretty sick. Kai says, weird question, but is there a reason Jazzmaster pickups can't be selected with the Evertune bridge? Yes, they're too big. That's the short version. The Jazzmaster pickups take up so much space that it actually pushes the Evertune bridge as a bridge is so wide that it would actually hit the pickup. You can certainly do like humbucker size P90s and stuff, obviously, as like Mitch did with his Mitch 6 signature. But yeah, it's just due to the size of the pickup. Certain pickups have weird limitations like that. The Jazzmaster pickups are big. Certain pickups are too deep because they'll actually hit the Evertune module. Some of our bodies are not thick enough to fit like a specific pickup and the Evertune stuff at the same time. So that stuff kind of depends, but yeah, that's why. Brian says another weird question with compound radius. How do you all set the bridge radius? So we don't do compound radiuses for the record, but if we get a guitar and that's a compound radius, or we know someone that has one and we set it up, there are different schools of thought on how you do that. Typically, a compound radius is 12 to 16. For anyone who doesn't know what a compound radius is, the radius is the curvature of the fingerboard and the frets here, right? And a compound radius fingerboard, popular on Jackson's and a lot of other brands, starts at a 12-inch radius. So you have more curvature on the fingerboard here near the headstock where you would normally play chords, because it can be more comfortable to play chords with a smaller radius. And then as you move up the neck, the radius goes from this to this, and it starts to flatten out, exaggerated, of course, but it goes from the 12-inch to the 16-inch radius up here. So you get the comfort of chording down here with the flatness for shredding down here. And it's supposed to be like a kind of best of all worlds solution. Personally, I'd rather one or the other, but I get it. And compound radiuses are cool. Radii are cool. Personally, you kind of have to, the starting point is always to radius it from the smaller radius. Because if you think about when you have more curvature, if you're radiusing the strings to a larger curvature and the fingerboard gets flatter, you still have plenty of clearance. If you do it the other way around, where you radius the fingerboard for flat, like a 16-inch, and then you have more curve at the 12-inch radius, you could end up getting some string buzz issues. So some people will split the difference. It's really a personal preference thing. As a starting point, I would radius the strings for the smaller radius in the compound radius, because that sort of best sets you up to kind of do whatever you want. You'll end up with slightly higher action down here, but you can tweak those individually, and depending on your setup, you can get things a little flatter. That's a good question, though. If I want to send strap locks for install, when do I need to get with you? Whenever you're ready, dude. Just I'll give you the address. You can send them over. Once your guitar gets here, we'll swap them out. Bing, bang, boom. We won't order them for you. I'll tell you that. You'll have to order them and send them to us. But yeah, no rush. And if your guitar gets here before it gets here and you'd rather wait, we can hold on to your guitar until the strap locks get here and we can install it. Most people don't want to wait any longer than they have to, but we can do that. So don't sweat it. Just let me know. John says, another question. Yes, that's what we're here for. Questions. Actually, we're almost there. So I'm going to get through some of these and then I'll probably riff for a second. I feel like I haven't played too much. When selecting nitro finish, you have to have oil and wax on the neck. What's the reason for that? Is it not possible to get a color match neck with a nitro finish? So the thing about nitro finish, and really any changing finish, is a nitro finish body bolt-on neck means that you can finish the neck completely separate from the body, right? You can do an oil and wax finish on the neck, and you can do a gloss finish on the body. You make them, and you're good. Set necks, the neck is set before the guitar is finished. Neck through, obviously, the neck through is installed before it's the bulk of the guitar at that point, in a way. So those things are done before the finish is applied. So with the bolt on, you can kind of do whatever you want. You can get away with it. It makes sense to do oil and wax neck rather than like poly on the neck, because the body and neck are going to feel like two different finishes. Because poly and nitro do not feel exactly the same. They also don't sound exactly the same. One is not better than the other. Throwing out a controversial opinion, there is no better choice. Poly has pros and cons. Well, really, I should say they both have different pros. Neither of them have cons, really, because you know what you're getting into with them. Poly is going to be way more durable, going to keep your guitar looking super pristine. The finishes can be applied. They cure faster, so the process is faster, and they can be applied more quickly. Nitro takes a lot more labor to get it where you want it. It's super soft, ages over time, but breathes a little more. So you tend to get a little more resonance out of the guitar. But you know how much more? It's depending on the guitar. It can be a little, it can be a little more, but it's rarely, if you're comparing a good poly finish to a good nitro finish, rarely is the difference like night and day. And typically, if it is, it's because something else has happened that isn't related to the finish. But that's why. If you were to do a set neck, you would have to spray the whole guitar in nitro. If you were to do a neck through, you have to spray the whole guitar in nitro, or poly, or vice versa. You wouldn't want to mix finishes. Also, if you wanted to do like a nitro body and an oil and wax neck, but you were doing like a neck through, you would have this weird line on the neck where the finish started, because oil and wax does not have like the thickness of a poly or a nitro finish. So you'd have this weird, like, it would feel like the paint had chipped or something. It's not a great feeling, and we don't offer that because we don't think it's a super professional way to do it. Not that you can't, but it just doesn't really turn out great in our opinion, feel wise. Fair question though. I had an old Les Paul and loved how the nitro lacquer neck wore down over time for my thumb. Yeah, I have an old Les Paul as well, and I love it. It's nitroed out. It survived floods in Louisiana. I gigged. It was my number one guitar for the first 15 years that I played. Yeah, 15 years. Over 15 years. Wow. And yeah, love it. And it does break in a way that is, consistent with the way you play. So it starts to kind of fit your hand, your style. You have the little memories of all the dings you put into it. I'm a big fan of nitro. The guitar that I have in order is a nitro guitar in the queue, because I like it. It'll actually be my first nitro of ours for myself. So stoked for that. Let's see. There's a fire alarm beeping the battery out chirp in my building. That sucks. You should go out with a broom and smash it. Use your Balaguer to smash it. I approve of that message. Just don't tell them I told you that. Disclaimer, do not do that. But you should probably do it, but don't do it. So if they look back on this, I can be like, I told him not to do it. Kai, are the Flyers going to make the playoffs this year? Jesus. No. And if they do, it'll probably be a trash run. But that doesn't mean I don't love them. That's a great question. Are you a hockey fan, Kai? If you are, I didn't know that. That's sick. And if I did know that and I forgot, I'm an asshole. Sorry, because that's sick. Kenny says they won't ever make the playoffs next year. Yeah, it's true. Dave, when you stop and look, you can always see me if you. Oh, we're back to the. Oh, cool. Okay, see me if you try to touch. You cannot feel me. I cannot move, but as you hear me out. Damn, that's a good one. That one's going in the library of cool riddles. I like that. Solid. Oh, okay, we're good. Sick. Well, I'm gonna riff for a second. I would say if you have any questions, now's the time. to start getting them together. Let them rip, and I'll lightning round it. And of course, I mean, I'm not in any rush. So I'm going to riff for a bit, and then we'll see what's up. Tune low, die slow. Oh man, I never get tired of that. I can't wait to get a JP2C again because it just sounds so good. Even through the QC, like just monitored, it sounds so ripping. Oh, love that tone. New-ish fan of the sport, but haven't picked a team yet. There's only one option, dog. That's it. That's all there is to it. Got to be a Flyers fan. Don't let anyone tell you about the Penguins. I'd almost give you a pass for the Avs because they were my team growing up, but only Flyers, baby. Only Flyers. Been watching for a couple of years. That's still sick, though. I'm stoked. Yeah, hockey right now is an interesting topic in the United States for both good and bad. Send my picks. Not yet, bro. Almost, though. Yes, Dave, you are an angel. John says, important question. What's my favorite pizza? What's your favorite pizza toppings and why? Oh, man. So my favorite pizza is Italian sausage and ricotta. So Italian sausage and ricotta cheese, red sauce, traditional like Italian style, super bomb. That's probably like my go-to. It's tough for me to get into like the pizza wars because I love pizza, all pizza. I will say my favorite styles of pizza are New York style and Detroit style. Detroit's one that if you're not from the States, you might not know about. Detroit style pizza. It's kind of like when you think of like Chicago deep dish, it's like that thickness, but it's a completely different preparation. Look it up if you don't know it. Maybe it's known outside the States. It doesn't feel like it would be, but maybe it is. So New York style slices, pretty unbeatable, in my opinion. Especially for like slices that you just like get a slice and walk with kind of thing, like on a plate, paper plate. But as far as like give me a full on pie and I'm going to embarrass myself, Detroit style is pretty tough to beat. Man, it's good. It's got crispy, like cheesy edges. It's got like the perfect balance of everything for me. But I go back and forth because they're all good. I love Chicago deep dish. Uh, I've had a couple pizzas that are overrated, but um, different styles. I mean, regional styles, but yeah, tough to beat. So all the big ones are good. You really can't go wrong. But those would be my choices. What's your favorite? And oh, by the way, if I'm doing Detroit style, it's going to be like just pepperoni. So I would say pepperoni. I also like pepperoni and jalapeno or pepperoni roasted garlic. That sort of like 2 ingredient pepperoni thing, definitely a sweet spot. But for thinner pies, especially like New York style or Italian style, got to be uh, the ricotta and Italian sausage. Good question though. What is your favorite color? That's tough. Excuse me. I like all colors. Um, I'm not like I don't have synesthesia or anything like that, but I do. I feel like I see things quite vibrantly, so I like things that are colorful. I like things that have nice contrast. If I was going to pick a favorite, I'll tell you what, I'll give you my top three. Probably orange, blue, and white. Because gold's not a color as I look at my gold burst. But like general colors, I would say orange, blue, and white, probably. Uh, my gold burst ether was almost orange burst. One of these days, I'll do a Halloween themed guitar because it is uh, an occasionally problematic percentage of my volume of my personality. But I love all things Halloween, so one day I'll do it. I've flirted with it many times. What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Nice. These tones today are sicker than Joe is. Damn, I appreciate that, bro. Um, yeah, this is like I'm in a happy place. Also, this guitar, which is one of the in stock guitars that's for sale, I should have said that earlier. This Seraph, which is a USA Seraph that we refinished in this retro splatter, retro noir splatter, has Seymour Duncans in it. It is a distortion and a jazz. So the bridge is like, I mean, the whole sound is very tight, very clear. It's alder body, roasted maple neck and board, roasted flame maple neck and board with the Duncans in it. So the distortions, like one of their first like high output ceramic pickups. So it's got like a real tight clank to it, which is also a tone that does really well with the JP2C and Mark amps in general. And the jazz is very like clear. If I'm honest, I like a little more warmth out of the bridge and a little more output and warmth out of the neck. So anyone who knows me knows I love the fission buckers, the Balaguer fission buckers. Not just drinking the Kool-Aid. I've compared them to an insane amount of pickups at this point, and they're the ones that I keep going back to. Alnico 5 set, tight but not too tight, modern but not too modern, just enough output. They're ripping. They're my go-to set for everything. Anything that's like rock or above. Um, what is the capital of Assyria? Wow, that's a good question. I'm gonna capital of Assyria. You mean now? I feel confused, but I don't know is the answer. I'll have to look it up. Kai says, I perhaps wrongfully placed my faith in the Leafs this year. I mean, yeah, can't be cheering for Canadian teams, bro. No, I mean the birthplace of hockey and all that. But yeah, I like the Leafs. I mean, Canada, of course, has an insanely rich hockey history, so they're a great team. Pineapple, obviously. Ew. I like pineapple in small doses, like in an al pastor or like roasted pineapple. I think pineapple and ham pizza, if you take the pineapple off, that little bit like residual pineapple flavor with the ham and the pizza is very, very good. Full on chunks of pineapple, not for me. I don't need fruit pizza. I just want pizza. But that bit of sweetness, like if you were to just take like a pineapple and juice it and just like give it a quick little what's the word I'm looking for? Like a little ribbon of pineapple juice, that would actually be pretty good. But don't be putting the whole things on my pizza. ain't no good. iPhone or Android? I'm an Android man. Have been for a long time. We actually just talked about this in the shop like last week. I had my first smartphone, because I'm old, was the 3GS, the iPhone 3GS, but I was like whatever in my early 20s when I got it. And then I had an iPhone 4, which is still, in my opinion, the best looking phone ever made, for what it's worth, even though dual glass was a risky call, as many people will know. But those phones looked super sick. And after that, it's been all Android. I've had a handful of Samsungs. Then I went to a Pixel, which I enjoyed, but I didn't feel like it was quite there. That was the Pixel 6, I believe, 5 or 6. I forget, but I didn't feel like it was quite there. So I went back to Samsung, and that's where I've been for a while now. My wife has the new Pixel Pro Plus, whatever the hell it is, and it's really great. I might consider going back next time I get a new phone, but I'm also like not that guy. I appreciate tech, but I'm not like always into having the new tech thing. And I'm pretty, while I'm hard on my phones, I've been fortunate. I'll crack it next week now that I've said this, but knock on wood. I'm pretty lucky to not have destroyed most of my phones. They always end up with a cracked screen, but it's like still usable. So I usually keep phones for like 4 or 5 years, basically until planned obsolescence forces me. Shout out to capitalism, to get a new phone. Good question though. I'm loving the USA Muramasas. Oh yeah, sick, dude. I meant to ask you. I'm glad you like them. They look super sick in your Woodman, and they sounded great in that vid. There's a cool, like, I think the Muramasas are a really great, just like not too much of anything, but enough of everything pickup, where it's just like right there. I don't know how to describe it. It's not mid forward. It's not like super trebly. It's not super bassy. It's not crazy high output. It's not any of that. It just sits in this really sweet spot. And the blade magnets add that bit of compression that give you that really nice even tone. They're really sick. Joe actually had a Vega for a while that had Muramasas in it, and I thought it was one of the best sounding guitars he ever had. Ash-bodied Vega with Muramasas in it, and yeah, what a ripper! I like the Muramasas a lot, and I hope we can do. We have a set in the shop right now. I'm hoping we can do a video of it to add to the library of the YouTube clips. We have a couple of guitars that we're gonna do some stuff with like that. Muramasas, Master Coils, Adam Buckers, gonna be sick. Oh, and of course the Backwoods P90s. Whew, had a moment there. Was worried I was having a stroke. Pineapple is good with pulled pork. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Ooh, sorry, my nose is running. Oh, don't worry, Dave. I know what you're asking about. While I am not a hyper, I'm not like a Monty Python devotee. I am certainly a bit of a cinephile, and am certainly an Anglophile. So I do know Monty Python, and I have seen, I believe, all of them. Life of Brian is my personal favorite. But yeah, good stuff. My partner from across the room, this man knows about pineapple. Let him cook. Oh my goodness. Everyone talking about pineapple. An Android man. Did we just become best friends? Hell yeah, brother. That's the way to do it. That is the way. What is more important, having a sick guitar or knowing how to play a crap guitar? Yeah, definitely the latter. Dave's right. I will say, being sick at the guitar and having, which I'm not saying I'm sick at the guitar, being good at the guitar and being in a situation where you're stuck playing a shit guitar is, wow, it's not fun. Anything that makes you feel like you could be playing better and you're not because of stuff like that is no good. And I appreciate that people will say, oh, like a great player can make crap gear sound good and play good and all of that. Not always true. Respectfully. Most of the time it's true. Certainly they can almost always make it sound good, even if it doesn't feel good or make it easy to play. But yeah, going to be gear to me, while I love it and am a nerd and collect and I'm like all into it, is really like My advice to people is get a good guitar, a good amp. If you're into pedals and you do that kind of thing, get a couple of good pedals that like get your core sound together. Once you have like a North Star, it becomes much easier, much less stressful, much more fun to just like have a bit of a home base and then take it from there. In my opinion, not that the journey isn't fun. You know, I mean, I've bought and sold amps for other amps, bought and sold guitars for other guitars, bought and sold pedals for other pedals. I usually end up missing the ones that I thought I was going to miss, but I was just too stupid to like not do it because I wanted something new and shiny or wanted to try something different that I thought I had a rare opportunity to try. Um, which I can't fault myself for that. I wouldn't say it's a regret. It's just like, you know, not a lot of people are made of money in the way where they can just play whatever they want. And you know, even though I work for a guitar company, I'm in the same boat. You know, otherwise I'd be loaded with amps and more gear on the floor and everything. But it is, it's a very, I think it's good advice in general, if I may be so bold, to just get a good core sound, find what you like, experiment, push the boundaries, try everything. And then when you find the things that you know you really love, like when I can build this preset, like I was talking about earlier, with a chorus in the front, a flanger in the effects loop, a short and long tape delay or analog, like DMM style, but I tend to prefer tape. Um, you know, like I know all of those things because I've done it and I've tried everything else. You know, other modulations, other routing options, configurations, all of that stuff. And knowing what you like as a starting point is a great way to then branch out because you've done your homework. You end up at this place. And so you know that. I mean, that's why, like, when I play this rig, I feel good because I've compared it against all the other rigs. I know in my heart that, like, it is something that makes me happy. And like everything else, without this becoming a philosophy podcast, it does, or live stream, it does, in my opinion, it pays off to have faith in what you love because as humans, we always go through phases where we don't like the things that we know we like because we're turned on by something else or we're in a bad room with our amp and our guitar and it didn't sound as good as we were used to, or someone on the internet decided to shit talk us instead of being cool, you know, and you might feel a certain kind of way about it. I think having that baseline, that foundation, that core sound that you know you love is like, you have to trust yourself and you have to have faith in that. And you have to be able to be like, okay, this applies to more than just gear, but certainly for gear, because that's what we're talking about, right? It helps keep you on the straight and narrow, you know? And I can, you know, I have whatever, 20 presets on the quad that I've built myself. They're different things, different everything, different pedals, different amps, different all that. This is the one I go back to, and it always is. Even on Tuesday, I was playing a bunch of Driftwood stuff. Wednesday, I was playing Driftwood stuff because I love the Driftwood stuff. Today, I was like, I'm gonna play the Driftwood stuff for the stream, and I was plugging in and warming up, and I was like, oh, let me just turn on the JP2C, and I was like, nope, playing the JP2C today because I love it, and I trust myself to know that even when I'm not feeling it or hearing it. So, long answer to what seemed like a simple question. So sorry if I went off the rails, but that's a good one. I think it's important. I think things like that are important. Um, Having a badass guitar is way more important. You never saw Hendrix with a Squire, did you? Damn, that's some shade. Um, no, but I did see Hendrix play some cheap guitars. I mean, Jimmy Page played Dan Electros. Uh, you know, Jack White played K guitars. Ariel Posen, excuse me, has a couple of like cheap guitars that have a specific tone. Um, you know, I think in general, not only is beauty in the eye of the beholder, but there's no such thing as bad art. So like if you're playing a guitar and the guitar sucks, but the art you're making with it is good, then like, and I don't mean good as in like objectively good, I mean good to you as the person making the art, then like who cares, right? You could be, I'm thinking of that documentary, I guess you'd call it a documentary. It Might Get Loud with Jack White and The Edge and Jimmy Page. and he like nailed Jack White at one point, which is I love Jack White, not just for his recent political endeavors, because my dude is awesome, but also like as a musician, I respect it. This was a moment of a bit of, my dude was laying it on a little thick, but it was still pretty sick. He like literally takes a board and like pulls a wire over a bottle, nails it down, plugs in a pickup, and he's like, "There, you've got a guitar." And like he plays some slide on it for a second, and I'm like, does that sound good to me? Like in that moment, absolutely not. But like in the context of the art he was making, it was very cool. And the sentiment is cool. And some of the best music ever has been made with gear that sucks. So it's like I'll never be the one to say that the gear is more important than the art, because it's just not, in my opinion. But that being said, cool gear also rules. And, I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, oh man, just like grab a punch up guitar and play, quit complaining. Like, oh, don't be that guy. Like, come on, just play the guitar. Shut up and play the guitar. Like, come on. Those people suck too. Like, either extreme sucks. Just do what makes you happy. And in my personal experience, what makes me and most players that I've talked to the happiest is knowing your core, right? Knowing your core sound, knowing what you love, and always having that as a sort of North Star that you can use to navigate the world of gear and music and art. But anyway, Android all the way, boys. Yeah, Kenny knows what's up. Did you skip? Wait, you made a human robot comment? If I did, let's talk about Human Robot. Oh, I did. So Human Robot is a brewery here in Philadelphia. They have a couple of locations, one in Jenkintown, which is near where Kenny lives, and it is the best brewery in the Americas, in the United States. It is absolutely amazing. It's the best beer I've ever had outside of Oktoberfest beer in Germany, like outside of Fest beer at Oktoberfest in Germany, because that beer is something special. That might be, I mean, it not might be. That's the best beer I've ever had in my life, without a doubt. But whatever Human Robot is doing here in Philly is, it's just, it's God tier. It's the best. They brew simple beers extremely well, and they're just like, it's all the flavor, none of the bullshit. It's amazing beer. They also do fun other things that are like wild, but their core lineup of stuff is just like, I have no other way to say it other than it's just the best beer I've ever had in the States, for sure. So shout out to Human Robot. And Kenny, I don't know how I missed that comment, but I had to go back to it. So I appreciate it. When it sounds good and feels good, you play better, Dave says. Yes, I do think I'm a big proponent of the look good, feel good, play good mentality, which is like a fun way of saying everything matters a little bit. If you're uncomfortable, you're not going to play as well, whether that's what you're wearing or your mental state or your like the gig the venue, like the gear you're using. If you look good in whatever context, you will feel good, and when you feel good, you will play good. Whether it's sports, music, whatever. Strongly believe that. So yes, absolutely true. Kai says, my new custom order was a hybrid of every spec I love on my current guitars. Really hoping it'll become my number one. Sick. I also think that's a really self-aware way to word that. Really hoping it becomes my number one. It'll become my number one, sorry. Because it's funny how, like, I've done builds like that, right? Where I combine all the spec that I know I love. And sometimes it just doesn't, the sum of its parts is not what I thought it was going to be. And that's always interesting. Not trying to put that juju on you. I'm sure that will become your number one guitar and be an excellent guitar. But it is interesting how that happens sometimes. And those are things that are completely out of anyone's control. Sometimes you just don't jive with something, or it sounds or does or feels something a certain way that like you weren't expecting. And I don't mean like the neck carve. I just mean like, sometimes you think you're going to love something and you don't, and it happens. But so anyway, self-aware way to word that, which was cool. But yes, I'm sure it will be great. And I have my Ether is one of those guitars where other than the shape, which is obviously extreme, um, the rest of the spec is all spec that I knew that I loved. And the guitar came together in a way that just like, I mean, it's my number one guitar for a reason, for anything rock, metal, or any of that stuff. Um, and yeah, it just absolutely rips. I'm hoping the one that I have in the queue uh, probably won't take its place for some things, but I'm hoping that it's my, the sister guitar and those two that I use all the time becomes the two that I use all the time. The Edge plays one note with a delay, and they were like, "That's it." Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's true. It's funny. I think there's it's people. The Joshua Tree is one of the greatest albums ever recorded in the history of the world. Like, bar none, it's not an opinion. It is one of the greatest albums recorded in the entire world, in the history of mankind. One of the best pieces of art ever recorded. Um, and those sounds, the amount of people that I've heard over the years be like, "Oh, he's just doing this," and I'm like, "What? Were you like dropped as a child? What do you mean he's just doing that? It doesn't matter that it's simple. Again, back to there being no such thing as bad art. Like, by itself, it's sick. But what those guys wrote together was like literally a generational album. And while, yes, my opinion on the album itself is subjective, of course, you know, any player that yucks someone's yum because the playing is simple is not someone that I want to hang out with. Let me put it that way. Got him, Dave. Bad juju. Yeah, I don't put bad juju on anyone. I'm hoping my new guitar doesn't become my number one, but if it is, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I don't know, man. Your spot is so sick that uh, I think you'd be hard pressed to beat it with. I mean, the Woodman BB is insane. It might be just because it has an Evertune and different pickups. You might end up liking it more. But they're two very different guitars, so I think you'll be in a good place where you'll have two sick guitars. Um, Kenny and I were actually talking about this earlier. Something very cool is like when you have a guitar that people associate with you, and Kenny has one of those guitars. He has like an Espada Select Custom that I can't disassociate that guitar from him. Every time I think about that guitar or him, I think about him or that guitar. But very cool. Hoping mine does. Still repping a Les Paul from '04. That's a headstock repair. Looking for something a bit different. I mean, I respect anyone rocking a Les Paul, especially if it has a headstock repair. And I think it will be different. I'm stoked for your build because it is very sick. You know what that means? Time to put an Evertune in the Espada. Yeah. Hey, that may be the thing. We'll see. Um, as I've said many, many times on this stream and everywhere else, while I would not put an Evertune on every guitar, I could never be without it again. I have to have a guitar with an Evertune. It's just too good. It's an absolute game changer, and like not in a metaphorical way. So we actually ended up hitting on one of the things that I was going to use to like kickstart all of this, which was the art can't be bad thing. I thought that was I had a great conversation with D, who's our lead QC tech here in the shop, about art and like how there are things that you cannot like, but not liking it does not make it bad. And there's no such thing as bad art. But maybe that's a full stream for another time. I'm glad we got to touch on it though. It's coming up on 4 o'clock. You know what that means. It means we're already pushing it. But I will say, I kind of gave last call earlier, but it's all personal taste, baby. Cody, yo, what's up, dude? Absolutely right. And good to hear from you, man. Hope you're doing well. Cody, insanely sick dude. Hung out with us at NAMM this year. Incredible artist, by the way. Check out Mr. Cody Jimenez. But got in that fire alarm was driving me mad. Oh, it's still going off? Man, seriously, you got to go smash that thing off the ceiling. Chirp. I thought you were just going to chirp like 10 times in a row. Pack for a gig. Hey, have a good show, man. Seriously, enjoy it. Stay safe. Arrived late. Oh, don't worry about it, Daryl. Glad you made it, dude. Good to hear from you. and I am going to riff for a bit, and then I'm going to peace out. Thanks everyone for hanging. Really cool questions today. We're going to have to do this maybe a little more often. I feel like we do it every 6 months or maybe once a year, but we'll get Joe in on the next one so you guys can really grill him too. If he's still here, I hope he heard that. I hope he heard that. But either way, hope everyone has a great weekend. Thanks for hanging. You know, it's Friday. Happy Friday. And yeah, stay safe. Have fun. Check Balaguer Guitars out everywhere that you can check out Balaguer Guitars. Like, comment, subscribe. Party on, Wayne, and party on, Garth. And I'm going to riff. See you guys soon.